Welcome to Royal Daily Report, your trusted source for breaking royal news and exclusive palace revelations. I'm your host, and what we're about to share with you today will shock you to your core. This is the story the palace never wanted you to hear. Make sure you're subscribed, because this changes everything. Hit that subscribe button right now. Boom! The royal truth is finally out. For years, the world believed Prince Harry and Meghan Markle had crafted a picture-perfect family. Two adorable children, a glittering California life, and a narrative polished enough to shine through screens everywhere. But today, that carefully created story is cracking open because a woman the world has never met has finally stepped into the light. She goes by DL. Her real name remains hidden for her protection, but her presence is right there, sharp, calm, and unblurred. No disguises, no shaky voices, no hesitation. She is here to deliver a truth she says she has carried alone for years. A truth that could rewrite everything we know about the Sussex children. In her own words, DL claims she is the woman who carried and delivered both Archie and Lilibet. Not a donor, not a helper, not a surrogate in the hidden clinical sense. According to her, she was the full surrogate. The woman who endured the pregnancies while Meghan appeared on camera, cradling a baby bump that DL says never belonged to her. Now, let me pause here and explain exactly what DL is claiming, because this is absolutely massive. When she says she was the full surrogate, she means that she was the one who was actually pregnant with these children, not Meghan, while the world watched Meghan attending events with what appeared to be a growing baby bump. DL claims that she was the one in doctors' offices, going through prenatal checkups, experiencing morning sickness, feeling the baby's kick, and eventually going through labor and delivery. This isn't a claim about egg donation or some minor involvement. This is a claim that Meghan was never pregnant at all. That the entire pregnancy was staged for the cameras while DL carried out the real biological process in secret. Think about what this means. Every photo we saw of Meghan with her hand on her belly, every interview where she talked about feeling the baby move, every appearance where she glowed with that supposed pregnancy radiance. According to DL, all of it was an elaborate performance designed to fool the world. Before we go any further, I need you to do something for me right now. If you're watching Royal Daily Report for the first time, hit that subscribe button immediately. We are the only channel bringing you this level of detailed, exclusive coverage of what's really happening behind palace walls. Turn on all notifications, because this story is developing by the hour, and you need to be with us for every single update. Subscribe to Royal Daily Report right now and join our community of truth seekers who refuse to accept the official narrative. Do it now. DL explains that she was promised protection, privacy, and proper compensation. She was told she would remain anonymous and free once her role was complete, but she says that didn't happen. "I wasn't treated like a mother," she says quietly. "I wasn't even treated like a woman. I was treated like a vessel, a means to an end." That line hangs in the air like a storm cloud. A vessel used, erased, forgotten. But today, DL is done being erased. And she didn't come empty-handed. She brought the receipts. Let me explain what DL means when she says she wasn't treated properly. According to her account, from the very beginning of this arrangement, she felt like she was being controlled and manipulated. She claims that the people handling this surrogacy treated her not as a person who was doing something incredibly important and personal, but as a tool, a means to achieve a goal. She says she was isolated, kept away from her normal life, monitored constantly, and given strict instructions about what she could and couldn't do or say. She describes feeling like a prisoner in a gilded cage, where she had nice accommodations and medical care, but no freedom, no respect, and no voice. The promises she says she was given about compensation reportedly weren't fully kept. The privacy she was guaranteed apparently came with strings attached, meaning she was silenced rather than protected. And when her role was done, when the babies were born and handed over, she claimed she was essentially discarded, expected to disappear and never speak about what she had experienced. DL claims to have tons of proof. This isn't emotional storytelling. This isn't speculation. This is evidence, pages of it. According to DL, these records came from a former insider connected to a Beverly Hills fertility clinic, someone who finally chose to reveal what they believed had been hidden for too long. The documents include appointment logs, embryo implantation schedules, physician signatures, treatment summaries, progress notes, all dated, all stamped. all lining up with a timeline uncomfortably close to Meghan's publicly announced pregnancies. According to DL, the medical process began in late 2018, suspiciously close to the moment Harry and Meghan told the world they were expecting Archie. The timeline is tight, too tight to ignore. Now, this is where things get really interesting from an investigative standpoint. Medical records are not easy to fake. They contain specific information that only someone who is actually going through fertility treatments would have. We're talking about detailed appointment logs that show dates and times of visits to the clinic. We're talking about embryo implantation schedules that outline exactly when the fertilized embryos were transferred into the surrogate's womb. We're talking about physician signatures from doctors who performed these procedures. We're talking about treatment summaries that document the entire medical journey, from the first consultation through the pregnancy and delivery. And we're talking about progress notes that track how the pregnancy developed week by week, including measurements, test results, and any complications or concerns. All of this documentation, according to DL, matches up with the timeline the public was given about Meghan's pregnancies. When Meghan announced she was pregnant with Archie in October 2018, that coincides almost exactly with when DL says the medical process began for her. This isn't a vague connection. This is a precise alignment of dates that would be extremely difficult to fabricate. Are you still watching without subscribing to Royal Daily Report? Seriously, what are you waiting for? This is the biggest royal scandal in modern history, and we're breaking it down for you with more detail and analysis than any other channel. You need to be part of our community. Hit subscribe right now, turn on those notifications, and make sure you never miss a moment of this unfolding story. Royal Daily Report is your source for the truth. Subscribe now. DL describes how she was approached only weeks after the Sussex wedding, ushered into private meetings behind closed doors, and handed a thick legal contract filled with rules about silence, secrecy, and permanent anonymity. She speaks about the atmosphere of the arrangement: discreet, coordinated, and handled by people who she says were not acting for the first time. But the most significant moment of this chapter isn't what DL says, it's what she shows. A structured medical journey that mirrors the royal timeline. Everything is lined up with precision: dates, procedures, expected due dates, all shadowing the story the world was told. This is where the fairy tale begins to fracture. Think about the timing here. Harry and Meghan got married in May 2018. According to DL, she was approached about being their surrogate just weeks after that wedding. This suggests that the decision to use a surrogate was made very early, possibly even before the wedding. It wasn't a decision they came to after trying to conceive naturally and facing difficulties. This was apparently planned from the start. And the way DL describes being approached is significant. She wasn't just casually asked if she'd be interested. She was ushered into private meetings behind closed doors, which suggests a high level of secrecy and organization. The contract she describes sounds like something designed by lawyers who knew exactly how to ensure complete silence. Rules about what she could say, who she could tell, where she could go. All designed to make sure this arrangement never saw the light of day. And when DL says the people handling this were not acting for the first time, she's implying that this wasn't the first surrogacy arrangement these individuals had coordinated. That's a chilling detail because it suggests there might be a whole network of people who specialize in arranging secret surrogacies for wealthy and famous clients. And then DL drops the next wave of evidence. If the medical documents raise questions, the next set of evidence sends shockwaves. DL produces 2 ultrasound records. Each file carries her patient ID, exact timestamps, gestational markers. One ultrasound corresponds to a pregnancy in 2019, the other to a pregnancy in 2020. Both pregnancies align almost perfectly with the reported birth dates of Archie and Lilibet. Still, DL doesn't pause. She reveals bank statements, next transactions, wire transfers, and deposits routed through shell corporations registered in obscure jurisdictions. Insiders reviewing the trail point to financial managers historically connected to the Sussex circle. These aren't random payments. They follow a pattern, one that matches a payout structure DL claims was only partially fulfilled. Let me break down what these ultrasound records mean because this is crucial evidence. An ultrasound is a medical imaging technique that shows the developing baby inside the womb. Each ultrasound record contains specific information that can be verified. The patient ID connects the ultrasound to a specific person, in this case, Del. The timestamps show exactly when the ultrasound was performed, and the gestational markers indicate how far along the pregnancy was at that moment. What makes these ultrasounds so powerful as evidence is that they can be compared to the public timeline of Meghan's pregnancies. If DL's ultrasounds show a baby at, say, 20 weeks gestation on a specific date, and that date corresponds to when Meghan would have been about 20 weeks pregnant based on her announced due date, that's extremely compelling evidence that DL was the one who was actually pregnant. Now let's talk about the financial evidence, because money trails are often the most difficult evidence to dispute. DL is showing bank statements that document payments she received. But these aren't straightforward payments from Harry and Meghan's personal accounts. Instead, they came through wire transfers and deposits that were routed through shell corporations. A shell corporation is essentially a fake company that exists only on paper to hide the real source of money. These corporations were registered in obscure jurisdictions, meaning countries or regions known for protecting financial privacy and making it difficult to trace money back to its original source. Why would someone go through all this trouble? Because they wanted to make absolutely sure that no one could connect these payments back to Harry and Meghan. But here's where they may have made a mistake. Financial experts and investigators who have looked at this trail say they can identify patterns that point to financial managers who have historically worked with the Sussex Circle. These are people known to handle money for Harry and Meghan or their associates. So even though the payments were disguised, the fingerprints are still there. Listen, we're giving you information that is worth its weight in gold right now. No other channel is going this deep into the evidence and explaining exactly what it means. Royal Daily Report is committed to bringing you the truth with the detail and analysis you deserve. If you appreciate this level of coverage, show us by subscribing right now. Hit that button, turn on notifications, and become part of the Royal Daily Report family. We need your support to keep bringing you these exclusive investigations. Subscribe now. Then comes the most explosive document yet, a sealed, non-disclosure agreement. Thick, stamped, and supposedly presented to DL under threats of legal and financial ruin if she ever spoke out. According to legal advisors consulted by DL, parts of the contract may not have been enforceable across multiple countries, and that is the door DL says finally allowed her to step forward. But she saves her most dramatic move for last. DL declares she is ready to undergo a public DNA test conducted by a neutral third party with cameras rolling. She wants her genetic material compared to Archie and Lilibet directly, without lawyers, without private labs, and without manipulation, because she says she isn't bluffing. She's telling the truth, and she is ready for the world to see it. The non-disclosure agreement, or NDA, is a critical piece of this story. An NDA is a legal contract that prevents someone from sharing information about a particular topic. In this case, DL was apparently required to sign an NDA that forbade her from ever revealing her role as the surrogate for Harry and Meghan's children. The contract was described as thick, meaning it was extensive and detailed, covering every possible scenario and closing every loophole they could think of. It was stamped, meaning it was officially notarized and legally binding. And according to DL, it was presented to her with threats. She was told that if she ever violated this NDA, if she ever spoke publicly about what she had done, she would face complete legal and financial destruction. They would sue her for everything she had and more. But here's where the story takes an interesting legal turn. DL consulted with her own legal advisors who examined this NDA carefully, and they discovered something important. Parts of the contract may not be enforceable across multiple countries. What does that mean? Well, if the NDA was written under UK law, it might not have full legal power in the United States, where DL apparently lives. Or if it was written under California law, it might not apply in other jurisdictions. This legal gray area gave DL the opening she needed to finally speak out without immediate legal consequences. And then there's the DNA test offer, which is perhaps the most powerful move DL could make. She's not just making claims. She's offering to prove them scientifically. DNA testing is the gold standard for determining biological relationships. If DL's DNA shows she is the biological mother of Archie and Lilibet, there would be no room for debate. The truth would be undeniable. And DL is saying she wants this test done publicly, with cameras rolling, conducted by a neutral third party that neither side controls. This eliminates any possibility of manipulation or fake results. It's putting everything on the line. If she's lying, this test would destroy her credibility completely. But if she's telling the truth, this test would destroy Harry and Meghan's entire narrative. With everything just said, the foundation of the story is set. A woman claiming to be the true mother, a hidden medical journey, a paper trail of payments, a contract meant to silence her, and a DNA challenge the Sussexes cannot ignore. DL's claims cast a long shadow. But the real tremor begins when people start looking back. Not at gossip, not at internet theories, but at the public moments we all witnessed, the ones we once accepted without a second thought. For years, Meghan Markle appeared in flawless outfits, her hands resting gently on her stomach, glowing with the look of a proud mother-to-be. The cameras loved it. The crowds loved it. The world saw a beautiful pregnancy unfolding in front of them. But there was something else quietly happening, something that didn't fit the way a real pregnancy behaves. We're at a critical point in this investigation, and if you're not subscribed to Royal Daily Report yet, you're missing out on the most important royal coverage happening right now. Every day, we're uncovering new details, analyzing new evidence, and bringing you closer to the truth. Don't be left behind. Subscribe right now, hit that notification bell, and make sure you're with us for every development in this historic scandal. Royal Daily Report, where the truth comes first. Subscribe now. One moment in particular has become impossible to ignore. A filmed appearance where Meghan bends forward and her baby bump seems to fold inward sharply, not shift, not slide. Fold as if it were soft, collapsible, or padded. At the time, the moment was dismissed. Lighting, angle, fabric. Everyone had an explanation. But today, with DL's claims on the table, the clip is no longer a curious accident. It becomes a clue, a puzzle piece snapping into place. Because if DL carried Archie and Lilibet, then Meghan's bump wasn't a bump at all. It was a costume, a visual placeholder for a pregnancy she wasn't physically experiencing. And DL herself addresses these old moments, saying simply, "I told you it wasn't her pregnancy. It couldn't be because it was mine." This is where the story's grip tightens. The public moments, the physical inconsistencies, the quiet confusion people ignored, all of it now sits under a new, harsher light. Let me explain why this folding bump moment is so significant. When a woman is actually pregnant, her belly is firm because there's a baby, amniotic fluid, and a uterus inside. If a pregnant woman bends forward, her belly might bulge out slightly or shift position, but it will never fold inward like fabric or foam. That's physically impossible with a real pregnancy. But if someone is wearing a prosthetic belly, often called a moon bump in Hollywood, then bending forward could cause that fake bump to compress or fold, especially if it's not secured perfectly. The moment people are referring to was captured on video during one of Meghan's public appearances. She was sitting down and then bent forward, and observers noticed that her belly seemed to collapse inward in a way that looked unnatural. At the time, people who pointed this out were dismissed as conspiracy theorists or criticized for being mean to a pregnant woman. But now, with DL's claims providing context, that moment takes on new meaning. What if it wasn't a real pregnancy belly at all? What if Meghan was indeed wearing a prosthetic to maintain the illusion of pregnancy, while DL carried out the actual biological process in private? Pregnancy can be hidden. Birth cannot. And yet, no one ever saw Meghan go into labor. No hospital staff waved at reporters. No security convoy rushed to the maternity wing. No medical team confirmed Meghan's arrival or departure. No staged photograph captured the royal birth moment the world expected. In royal tradition, births are as public as coronations. William and Kate followed the script 3 times. Hospital steps, glowing smiles, newborns swaddled in their arms. But with Harry and Meghan, that centuries-old tradition shattered overnight. Instead of a hospital entrance, we got silence. Instead of a joyful photo call, we got Harry standing awkwardly near horse stables, speaking nervously to a camera crew as if he were announcing a school project, not the birth of a royal heir. This break from tradition is absolutely crucial to understanding why people have been suspicious from the beginning. For generations, royal births have followed a very public pattern. When a royal baby is about to be born, the media gathers outside the hospital. Security increases. Doctors and medical staff are seen coming and going. When the baby arrives, there's an official announcement, and within hours, the royal parents emerge from the hospital with their newborn for photographs. This happened with all 3 of William and Kate's children. The public got to see Kate just hours after giving birth, looking tired but happy, holding her new baby. This tradition exists because the monarchy is a public institution. The people have a right to witness these important moments, especially when it comes to children who will be in the line of succession to the throne. But when Archie was born, none of this happened. There were no photos of Meghan entering or leaving a hospital. No medical staff confirmed anything. And instead of a proper photo call, Harry appeared alone, looking extremely uncomfortable, making a strange announcement near some horse stables at Windsor. It felt rushed, awkward, and completely unlike any other royal birth announcement in modern history. Why the secrecy? At the time, Harry and Meghan said they wanted privacy. But now, with DL's claims on the table, that secrecy looks less like a personal choice and more like a necessity to hide the truth. Even at the time, something felt off. People wondered why the secrecy was so extreme. But now, with DL's story unfolding, that secrecy sounds less like privacy and more like protection. Sources close to the situation whisper that the birth happened out of sight. Because Meghan couldn't appear at a hospital, she never entered in the first place. This is where the story becomes more than emotional. It becomes logistical and impossible to brush aside. A birth without witnesses, a hospital visit without records, a royal moment hidden from public view. The question that quietly arises from this saga: what were they trying so hard to hide? This is exactly why Royal Daily Report exists, to ask the hard questions that mainstream media won't touch. If you value journalism that doesn't shy away from the truth, then you need to subscribe to our channel right now. We're not afraid to investigate, to challenge official narratives, and to demand answers. Join our growing community of royal watchers who refuse to accept lies and deception. Subscribe to Royal Daily Report, turn on all notifications, and stay with us as we continue to uncover the truth. Do it now. Until now, most of the story has hovered around Meghan and DL, but the story shifts the light onto someone people often assume is just a bystander in all this: Prince Harry. According to DL, Harry wasn't confused, tricked, or kept in the dark. She claims he was fully present from the beginning. She says he attended medical consultations, he signed clinic documents, he met her in person, he knew her name, and he approved every step of the process. In DL's words, he looked me in the eye. A simple sentence, yet it flips the entire narrative upside down. Because if Harry wasn't a passive participant, if he was an architect, then the secrecy wasn't just about protecting Meghan. It became a shared project, a coordinated choice between them both. This is perhaps the most damaging claim DL has made, because it destroys any possibility that Harry was an innocent victim in all of this. Up until now, some people have felt sympathy for Harry, thinking that maybe Meghan orchestrated this whole deception and Harry just went along with it to support his wife. But DL is saying that's not what happened at all. She's claiming that Harry was actively involved in the surrogacy arrangement from the very beginning. He didn't just sign papers without reading them. He attended medical consultations, which means he was at the fertility clinic, meeting with doctors, discussing the process. He signed clinic documents, which means he put his signature on official medical paperwork authorizing the surrogacy. He met DL in person and knew her name, which means this wasn't some distant anonymous arrangement. He looked her in the eye and approved each step of the process. If this is true, Harry is not a victim. He's a co-conspirator. He made a conscious choice to use a surrogate and then hide that fact from the world, presenting Meghan's fake pregnancy as real. But here's where everything begins to unravel. Sources close to the Sussex circle claim Harry is now struggling under the weight of the fallout. They describe him as emotionally stretched, snapping at staff, constantly checking for leaks, cutting off old friends and aides, and sinking deeper into anxiety. Some whisper that Harry never planned for things to go this far, that the secrecy was originally meant to protect Meghan's image or health. But the line between privacy and deception blurred too quickly, swallowing them both. And now the prince, who once felt he was protecting his family, is supposedly drowning in a secret he helped create. Imagine being in Harry's position right now. For years, you've maintained this secret, constantly worrying about when it might come out. Every time someone asks questions about your children, your heart races. Every time a tabloid publishes a story about surrogacy rumors, you have to decide whether to ignore it or threaten legal action. You've cut yourself off from most of your old life, your family, your friends, because you can't trust anyone with the truth. You're living in California, far from home, isolated in many ways. And now, the worst-case scenario is happening. The surrogate you paid to stay silent is speaking out. She has evidence. She's making public claims that you can't easily dismiss. Your entire life, your reputation, your children's future, all of it is hanging by a thread. The stress would be absolutely crushing. And according to people close to Harry, that's exactly what's happening. He's reportedly becoming paranoid, suspicious of everyone around him, worried that more leaks are coming. He's snapping at staff members who have worked for him faithfully. He's cutting off old friends who have been loyal to him for years because he doesn't know who he can trust anymore. This is what living with a lie does to a person. Eventually, the weight becomes too much to bear. While Meghan and Harry remain silent, Buckingham Palace is anything but calm. Sources whisper that behind its towering stone walls, senior advisors, legal experts, and constitutional scholars are quietly gathering, reviewing documents, discussing precedents, and assessing risks. Because DL's claims aren't just shocking, they threaten the mechanics of the monarchy itself. Royal succession demands that heirs be born of the body, meaning the child must be physically born to the royal mother. If a surrogate is used, it must be formally and legally declared. No secrets, no hidden births, no private arrangements. Archie and Lilibet were given royal titles and positions in the line of succession, positions that depend entirely on the legitimacy of their birth process. So, if DL is telling the truth, were royal protocols bypassed? Were legal documents quietly adjusted? Did advisors know? Did they investigate at the time? And what happens now to the children's royal status? Let me explain the constitutional implications here, because this is about more than just a family scandal. The British monarchy operates under very specific rules when it comes to succession. Who gets to inherit the throne, and in what order? These rules have been established over centuries through various acts of parliament and constitutional precedents. One of the fundamental requirements is that royal heirs must be born of the body, which is an old legal phrase meaning they must be the biological child of the royal parent, carried and delivered by that parent naturally. Now, surrogacy does exist and is legal in many places, and in theory, a royal couple could use a surrogate. But if they do, it must be declared openly and handled through proper legal channels. The surrogate must be acknowledged, appropriate legal documents must be filed, and the situation must be transparent. Why? Because the public has a right to know about the true parentage of people who might one day inherit the throne. This isn't about being cruel or invasive. It's about maintaining the integrity of the succession system. If Harry and Meghan used a surrogate but hid that fact, if they presented Meghan's pregnancy as natural when it wasn't, then they potentially violated these constitutional requirements. And if that's the case, Archie and Lilibet's positions in the line of succession could be in jeopardy. This isn't just a scandal. It's a potential constitutional crisis. Even Sir Edward Lane, the late Queen's longtime press secretary, a man who rarely speaks publicly, broke his silence to call this situation unprecedented. And his warning was clear. The danger isn't the surrogacy. The danger is the deception inside the palace. That sentence has become a thunderclap. This scandal doesn't just threaten Harry and Meghan. It threatens the very thing the monarchy needs to survive: public trust. And trust, once broken, is very hard to rebuild. Sir Edward Lane's statement is incredibly significant because of who he is and how rare it is for him to speak out. He served as press secretary to Queen Elizabeth II, one of the most respected positions in the royal household. He was the person responsible for managing the Queen's public image and communications for years. He knows how the monarchy works better than almost anyone, and he rarely, if ever, makes public statements about royal controversies. So for him to break his silence and call this situation unprecedented, that tells you how serious this is. But what's even more important is what he said. He didn't say the problem is that a surrogate was used. He said the problem is the deception. If Harry and Meghan had been honest from the start, if they had said openly that they were using a surrogate for medical or personal reasons, the public might have understood and accepted it. But by hiding it, by staging a fake pregnancy, by deceiving not just the public, but potentially the palace itself, they've created a crisis of trust. And for a monarchy that depends on public support to exist, trust is everything. We're nearing the end of this deep investigation, and I hope you can see why Royal Daily Report is the channel you need to follow. We don't just report the news, we analyze it, we question it, we We dig deeper than anyone else. If you value this kind of thorough, fearless journalism, then please subscribe to our channel right now. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and make sure you're with us for every update in this ongoing story. Share this video with everyone you know who cares about the royal family. Leave a comment below telling us what you think about DL's claims. And most importantly, subscribe to Royal Daily Report so we can continue bringing you the truth. Do it now. Every story has a beginning. Every lie has a breaking point. And every secret, especially royal ones, eventually claws its way into the light. We began with a woman who stepped out of the shadows. A woman who says she carried 2 royal children. A woman the world was never supposed to see. But now we see her, and she is not backing down. Her documents are lined up. Her ultrasound records match the royal timeline. Her financial trail points toward people who shouldn't be involved. Her NDA raises more questions than it answers. And her DNA challenge hangs in the air like a loaded weapon. Meanwhile, Harry is unraveling. Meghan is silent. Their PR machine is frozen. The palace is studying ancient rules written centuries before they were born. Everything is shifting. Everything is cracking. Everything is building toward a confrontation that no one, not the Sussexes, not the palace, not the public, is prepared for. Think about where we are right now in this story. A woman has come forward with detailed claims about being the surrogate for Harry and Meghan's children. She's not hiding behind anonymity. She's showing her face. She's presenting evidence, medical records, ultrasounds, financial documents, and NDA. She's offering to take a public DNA test to prove her claims. This is not a tabloid rumor. This is not an internet conspiracy theory. This is a real person making serious allegations, backed by what appears to be substantial evidence. On the other side, Harry and Meghan have gone silent. They haven't issued a denial. They haven't threatened to sue DL for defamation. They haven't produced any evidence to counter her claims. Their PR team, which usually responds quickly to negative stories, seems paralyzed. Why? Possibly because they know that responding could make things worse. If they deny DL's claims, and she then proves them with DNA evidence, they look even worse. If they threaten to sue her, and the case goes to court, discovery could force them to reveal documents and information they desperately want to keep hidden. So they're trapped in silence, hoping this story somehow goes away, even though it's growing bigger by the day. And the most chilling part, this story is not ending. It is opening. DL has more interviews ready. Major networks are circling. Lawyers are preparing for impact. And the truth, whatever it is tightening its grip on every person involved. If this is the end of the Sussex fairy tale, it won't end with a golden photo op or a smiling magazine cover. It will end in a room with microphones, lawyers, sworn statements, and consequences no one can escape. Because once a secret reaches this stage, there is no going back. The storm isn't coming. It's already here, and the next chapter is going to hit even harder. DL has indicated that this is just the beginning of her public revelations. She has more interviews scheduled with major media outlets. Major television networks are reportedly competing to get exclusive interviews with her because they recognize this is potentially the biggest royal scandal in decades. Lawyers on both sides are preparing for what could become a massive legal battle. If Harry and Meghan decide to sue DL for defamation, she'll have to prove her claims in court, which means presenting all her evidence publicly. If the palace decides to investigate and strip Archie and Lilibet of their royal titles, there will be legal proceedings around that as well. And if DL follows through with her offer of a public DNA test, the results of that test could change everything. We are standing at the edge of something historic. This story is going to get bigger, more complicated, and more explosive in the days and weeks ahead. And whatever the truth turns out to be, it's going to reshape the royal family forever. That brings us to the end of today's Royal Daily Report coverage of what may be the most explosive royal scandal of our lifetime. We've walked through DL's claims, examined her evidence, analyzed the implications for Harry, Meghan, and the entire monarchy, and explored what might happen next. This story is far from over. In fact, it's just beginning. DL is preparing more revelations. The palace is conducting internal reviews. And Harry and Meghan are facing the consequences of decisions they made years ago. Make sure you're subscribed to Royal Daily Report because we will be following every single development in this case. Hit that subscribe button right now if you haven't already. Turn on all notifications so you're alerted the moment we post new coverage. Share this video with everyone who needs to know the truth about what's happening behind palace walls. And leave a comment below telling us what you think. Do you believe DL's claims? Should Harry and Meghan face consequences if she's telling the truth? Let us know your thoughts. Thank you for watching Royal Daily Report. I'm your host, and remember, the truth always comes out eventually. We'll see you in the next video. Stay informed, stay vigilant, and never stop asking questions.